mean, we're talking about murder. We're talking about someone's life being taken from them. Have you nothing to say about that? Are you not going to address it?
Her silence is kind of deafening. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another short form video. We've got to talk about a big update and a scandal I already covered, which is that the Democratic Attorney General candidate in Virginia, Jay Jones, was outed as having sent all these incredibly unhinged and deranged text messages where he fantasized about his Republican candidates, opponents, or not opponents, but other Republicans that he worked with in the legislature, fantasized about their kids being murdered. And these came out, and he was condemned by people on his side of the aisle, but they haven't actually rescinded their endorsements or called for him to drop out of the race. And now the Virginia gubernatorial election is heating up with the Republican candidate, Winsome Earl Sears, calling out the Democratic candidate, former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, over these texts and her refusal to address them in any meaningful way. I mean, on the debate stage, she just went back and forth. And then there's a massive media blackout and cover-up going on that we simply have to talk about. But first, I just want to show y'all a ad that Winsome Sears is running right now that I think is just devastating. Take a look at this.
Would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail, what if he said it about your your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor.
Ms. Earl Sears.
I mean, we're talking about murder. We're talking about someone's life being taken from them. Have you nothing to say about that? Are you not going to address it? Really, you can't go any further. You're a governor. You're supposed to stand up for all the people. Are you saying political murder is all right? Have some political courage. What you have done is you are taking political calculations about your future as governor. Well, as governor, you have to make hard choices, and that means telling Jay Jones to leave the race.
This ad is devastating. I mean, this footage of Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic gubernatorial candidate in Virginia, just being silent when her Republican opponent is asking her to condemn these texts where the Democratic AG nominee fantasized about Republicans' kids being murdered and just openly advocated for violence and said how happy he would be. And she's just stone-faced silent. Genuinely, she would have she had weeks, or at least a week. She has strategists. They got in a room, they huddled together. How are you going to handle this on the debate stage, Abigail? And this is what they came up with. Just straight to the camera. And then when the moderator asked her questions about this, and I can insert a clip, she just stonewall word salad, didn't go anywhere, and tried to deflect blame.
Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many years.
What did you do about it?
I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them.
You're running to
presumably for
Ms. Earl
political
Sears,
reasons. But the voters now have the information, and it is up to voters to make an individual choice based on this information.
It should not be hard to say, yes, I'm a Democrat, but this person running with me, I condemn him fully. I think he should drop out of the race. Political violence has no place in our politics. Shame on him for ever writing those texts. He should be excommunicated from our party. Period. Full stop. And guess what? If that means you lose one attorney general's race in one state, so be it. That is how a normal politician, a normal political party would handle such a saga. Then we have the Democrats and Miss Abigail Spanberger here. I don't know. I just find it absolutely diabolical. And I don't know how anyone can be okay with this or think that's just fine. You know, you have one side of this race not thinking that murderously fantasizing about children is disqualifying to be the top law enforcement official in the state. I don't even have words for that. Not really. But the other piece of this that I want to talk to you guys about is you have this insane scandal where this Democratic Attorney General nominee had these texts revealed. And it's been kind of crickets in a lot of the mainstream media in a way that I think we all know it wouldn't have been if it was a Republican. Like, if we're just being so for real, if we're just being honest. I'm going to show you some damning data on this, but first, subscribe, like, comment, yada, 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 all down below. Now let's look at some analysis from Newsbusters, which is a conservative media watchdog. Democrat Jay Jones' heinous texts get a scant 63 seconds of coverage on NBC, 0 on ABC, CBS, and PBS. If Jay Jones were a Republican, he'd probably be a household name by now, Jeffrey Dickens writes. Imagine if there was a Republican candidate in a hotly contested race that was convicted of reckless driving, caught wishing death on a politician and his family in texts, accused of wanting to see police officers shot, and was called to drop out of the race by the sitting president of the United States. That candidate's face would be plastered all over ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS's news shows next to those heinous texts, accusations, and arrest record. But because Jay Jones is a Democrat, he enjoys the protection of the broadcast networks. I think this is a really good thing to ask yourself, just in terms of how would this go down if the party affiliations here were switched? And the truth is, I think we all know the answer. I think we all know the answer. It is very obvious, and it would not go down like this. And I would agree with them giving that kind of coverage if a Republican candidate had this scandal. It's just very, very wrong to not do the same in reverse. Anyway, here's just the context. In resurfaced texts that were released on October 3rd, Jones, who is running for Virginia Attorney General, suggested he would shoot then Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert over Adolf Hitler, totally normal thing to say, and declared that Gilbert's wife should be forced to watch his, quote, fascist children be killed. The texts from 2022 are more relevant given the heightened tensions about political violence, especially since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. On October 5, President Donald Trump called on Jones to drop out. This is a good point that, it shouldn't actually have to be a point here because it really shouldn't matter. This should be disqualifying in any time. But when American politics is at such a knife edge and so much horrific acts of political violence have scarred us and have people so concerned, to have them pull this is like exponentially more diabolical. For the Democrats to not uniformly call for this guy to drop out of the race, for the media to not cover this scandal, or a lot of the mainstream media at least. Anyway, back to this. So how much time did the broadcast networks devote to the text controversy? 63 seconds. You gotta be kidding me. Like, I'm not often taken aback by media bias, but this has to be one of the worst examples I've ever seen. Anyway, MRC analysts looked at the ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS evening, morning, and Sunday roundtable shows from October 3rd, the day the texts were first reported by National Review, through the morning of October 7th, and found just one mention of the Jones text scandal. The only discussion of Jones on the broadcast networks arrived on NBC's Sunday roundtable show. And what's so important to mention is that this mention of the scandal wasn't part of the news programming. It was brought up by a Republican guest who interjected the topic. Mark Short, who I believe worked in the first Trump administration, brought it up.
Also say in your interview with Leader Jeffries that can we stop with the pearl clutching about the mean tweets and sombrero tweets, that this week it came to light that a Democrat candidate for Attorney General state of Virginia called for the assassination of a political opponent, called for the assassination of that political opponent's family, and there's not one national Democrat calling for him to step aside. Not one. It's disgraceful.
Sparking like a brief mention of it, but it's not even like the news anchors made a segment about, no, oh my God, this is so bad. They go on to mention that other scandals involving this guy, like some of his alleged comments about police officers, that people have said he said some pretty controversial things, his 2022 conviction for speeding at 116 miles per hour, which I actually think is pretty bad. I actually think that's pretty reckless and dangerous, and you want to be the top law enforcement official for a state. But I guess in fairness, those are, for a statewide rate, I don't know, those are still big deals, but they're not like the most shocking thing you've ever heard in the way that these texts are. There's just absolutely no reason other than raw, rank, partisan media bias that they would not cover this. I don't know, man. You want to show me why we have the rise of independent media channels like this one. Make sure you're subscribed, by the way. But why we have declining ratings for traditional TV news and increased distrust in mainstream media. And I don't think the alternative is amazing, to be honest. Independent media and all these podcasts, they have their own downsides. And a lot of these people are not rigorous or fact-based, but this was the alternative, right? This kind of mainstream media ecosystem trapped in this backwards business model and just absolutely rife with bias and partisanship that shows up not just in the coverage, but what they even choose to cover. I just think it's remarkable, but you guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet, hit the like button, comment, yada, yada, yeah, and we'll be back with more content real soon.